For the second video on the Lord's Supper, as we again consider the benefits that we receive from the Lord's Supper, namely the forgiveness of sins and all that is attached to that beautiful gift through Christ's sacrifice, we want to consider this. Some say that the Lord's Supper is something we do simply because Jesus commanded us to eat and drink. And they would call this a memorial meal. We would do this eating and drinking in remembrance of him who gave his life. And that's all it is. They deny that Jesus is truly there in the supper, giving us forgiveness. How does the following passage show that the Lord's Supper is more than just a meal commemorating Jesus' sacrifice, which it is, that's what we do in that meal, but more than that, but that he's truly present, giving us the price of our salvation, the ransom price of our salvation, his very body and blood. And how is that truth of this real presence, we would call it, so much more comforting than expressing what we're doing for God? So we've got two questions going on there. In this following passage, tell me how we know that there's more than just bread and wine, an outward sign of our love for God, but that Christ is present and God is doing something for us. Lastly, why is that important to know? Why is that so much more comforting to know God is up to something, giving us something, versus us just doing something for God? All right, here's that passage, actually two of them, one from Luke chapter 12:19. Jesus says, "Do this in remembrance of me," so it is a memorial meal. 1 Corinthians 10:16, "Is not the cup of thanksgiving for which we give thanks a participation in the blood of Christ? And is not the bread that we break a participation in the body of Christ?" Just interesting note, the Greek word there for participation is where we get the English translation also, communion. So that's why it's a coming together. Is it not a coming together of Christ's body, Christ's blood with the bread and wine? All right, back to those two questions. From that passage, how do we know that there's something more being offered here than just us saying we love God, remembering his death for us? And why is that more comforting? To know that God is giving us something here. Blessings on your conversation. We will see you in our next video.